a little special needs check-in. So, sorry, I don't have my tripod either. There we go. So I have two kids with special needs. My oldest, who is grown and gone, not gone forever, but he's serving a mission for our church, so he's not home anymore. And he's actually, this is actually just a really good topic because, so he's been out for a year. I'm going to talk about big kids and little kids and sort of in between too. So he's been out for a year, and when he left, he had so he had his first evaluation when he was about 9, and I knew there was something going on. It wasn't necessary for me to have a diagnosis. I just worked with him, and that was more than 10 years ago. So resources are different now, but we ended up doing the whole like diagnosis route because of course stuff with my ex-husband, and so it just confirmed what we already knew. And because we have been doing Waldorf and been doing low media and had already been doing those things and had been altering his diet, the therapist that we worked with, he said, I don't even know what else to tell you to do because you're doing it all. And so those were the things that we really worked with them. And when he was about 9 was when he and I really started having the conversations about, you're a little bit different, and that's going to make things a little more interesting for you, a little harder for you in some ways. And so that was an interesting time for him. So he's carried that. He's almost 20. He's carried that for the last 10 years and done very well with it. We, when he was 8, 9, I thought the kid was going to live with us forever. But we really did a lot of work with him, I would say for anybody working with spectrum stuff, the ages between 6 and 12 are probably the hardest. And then after 12, they tend to sort of settle in a little bit. And for Harry, it was very much like that we have this, in our faith, we have different signposts, different things that they do at 12, at 14, at 16, at 18. And at 12, he really wanted this first, and my husband said, that's not happening unless you stop lying. And you need to get yourself in order and stop lying. And he stopped lying overnight. So that's what's interesting about generally kids with ASD, Asperger's, because they are so black and white, they can make a decision, and it's sort of like the decision for life. So I remember one time when he was 14, he was like, I'm taking a shower every day. And he did, every day. And when he couldn't take a shower, it was like all hell was going to break loose because he had it in his rhythm that he was going to take a shower every day. So because they are so black and white, there are some things that can be very, very awesome. I mean, when they make some decisions like that, then it can really be very helpful. And so it's about really helping them. It's about, noticing their uniqueness, of course, but also helping them find ways to cope so that they can be part of everyday life, and so that they can enjoy life. And they tend to be loners a little bit, and tend to really struggle with social stuff. So we really worked on that with Harry. I really wanted him to be able to live a full life, whether or not, when we were working on this at 12, whether or not he ended up serving a mission for our church was not my concern as much as just wanting him to serve, to have a full life. When he was 17, he decided, yes, this is what I'm doing. I want to be prepared to go on a mission. And so we had about a year to prepare. And it was great because within that year he worked at Legoland. So he really had opportunities to, work with other people and to be out facing the public. And his social stuff went gangbusters. And he finished school up, he got his GED. He was very excited about those things. And that can be very hard with special needs kids to get them sort of excited. I've noticed, I think that, and this is just my armchairing here, I am finding that most kids that tend to be ASD spectrum are either phlegmatic or, I think phlegmatic or choleric. And I'm leaning more towards phlegmatic for most many. Not, and I'm not talking about sensory stuff because I've got Sophia. I'll talk about her in a minute, and she's very choleric, but and I think sensory stuff tends to be a little bit different. But I think if we're looking at Asperger's, I think we're looking at a lot of kids that are phlegmatic, and so you have to really look at how to work with them that way. I think temperament works beautifully with kids on the spectrum, beautifully, and even more so because, when I looked at Harry, he's super phlegmatic, and he's got all the really good things and all the really bad things all in one big soup. There's like not a whole lot of like gray area. It's good, bad, good, bad. So where most of us, our temperaments, we tend to blend out, and we can balance those a little bit, but those are just polarizations that I noticed sort of raising him. And so he sent me this. He's really funny. We talk on the phone Mother's Day and Christmas, and while he's out on his mission, and then we get letters all the time, and we email quite frequently. So on Mondays are his day that he emails, and so we'll go back and forth in email for probably 2 or 3 hours, and he does that with everybody here in the house, and so we all get sort of a piece of him, and it's really nice. But in that, he also sends paper letters on a regular basis, and so he's so funny. So he sent me this letter that wasn't really a letter. It was a 1-page letter and 8 pages of autism research that he had done. And I thought it was really beautiful and funny, and he had taken the time and really put together. And I think I'm going to scan it and put it up for anybody who wants to see it. He had taken the time to really put together some it was very heady. It was very analytical. Some thoughts on autism, and sort of how he struggled with that. So I'm going to take these off because that's driving me crazy. And how he struggled with it. What I wanted from him, and then I'm going to ask him for now, is like the emotional side of it, because that's something that we often don't get from kids on the spectrum. They often are very in their head and very analytical. But so anyway, I wanted to share that. I do think that they can live these amazing lives, and I suspect he'll be home in a year. And I suspect he's going to hit the ground running. He's got these major goals, and so if you're in the thick of it with the spectrum, and you just think you're not going to be able to make it till tomorrow, keep going. Just keep going, because it is super rewarding to stand where I'm standing. That doesn't mean he's going to come home and fly right always, and I'm never going to have to step in and help. It just means that he's making these major steps. And yeah, he's had some struggles while he's been out, and some of them have been social. Most of them have been struggles with his diet. And once he got his diet, once I wasn't the one like being the cheerleader every day, no, you probably shouldn't eat that. But so it took him like 9 months to figure out, you know what, maybe my mom was right. Maybe I need to not eat these things because it's making me super unhappy. So once he sort of got those sort of things sorted out, then it was super helpful to him. So I wanted to give you this longevity of, like, if you're standing where, and your kids with special needs are young, it can change. Now, and I have to say, I pushed Harry on a regular basis. I was very and I'm not talking like overbearing, but definitely pushed him in the directions that I knew he would express that he wanted to go. And sometimes that wasn't fun. But one of the things that's amazing is, as mom, you know how to push them more than anybody else. And that was one thing that the therapist told me years ago. He said, you'll know how to push him where nobody else will understand. You'll understand more than dad. You'll understand more than any teachers he has. So you'll understand how to push him more than anybody else. And I really took that to heart, and I really took the time, and I do a lot of prayer and meditation on my kids, and I spent a lot of it on Harry, and a lot of it sort of figuring out I want to do this right. And it doesn't mean I didn't screw up. I screwed up a lot. There were lots of days that I got to the end of the day and I was like, dang it, shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have done that, man. the blessing of the phlegmatic is that they sort of get over it really fast. And so he would, because they want to be like comfortable again. So he would maybe have a tantrum, or he and I would get into an argument and it would be gone like really fast and he'd be done. So that was always a blessing, but it did refine me. He did very much make me the mom that I am. And you do have to parent the special needs kids differently, you know, and that doesn't mean you're not a positive parent with them. It doesn't mean that you're not an attached parent with them. I was definitely both of those things in every sense of the word, but the disciplining was different. You know, when you have kids on the spectrum, especially Asperger's, and sort of ASD stuff, you really have to. It's there is more bargaining that goes on. There is definitely not coercing, but definitely sort of laying it out on the table. This is how it is, and I need XYZ done, and you can't do the other until you get XYZ done. We actually have a lot different time with it with other children who can sort of see that gray area, and so it makes it a little bit easier. And I'm looking. It's hard sometimes when they break down. Yes, it's very hard when they break down. Sorry, I have my glasses on now, so I was looking at the comments. It is hard when they break down, and he, you know, his breakdowns, the breakdowns and the tantruming, really subsided in his teenage years. So what you see, I would say his biggest tantruming years were between 6 and 12. And so that's part of the reason why it got so much easier after 12. One thing that really helped Harry, really helped him, and he was probably 9 when this happened. He had a really bad interaction. It was before I met Eric, but he had like this major meltdown. And we'd gotten through it, and it was like a few days later, and we were at the park. And the park they had some YMCA people that had some kids with special needs there. And there was a boy that was about his age that didn't look like he had much more going on than probably what he had going on, maybe a little bit more severe. And the boy had a total meltdown tantrum. And he watched, like Harry just watched it. And at the end, he turned to me, he said, "Is that what I look like?" And I said, "Yep, that's what you look like." And he said, "I don't want to look like that anymore." And so he really took it to heart about like really, and so from then on, we were able to sort of back off we worked with triggers more. We worked with being able to, you know, name, okay, I'm not feeling good. I'm getting angry. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting upset. So if you're in that spot, I would videotape them. I would videotape a tantrum. I would let them see, and I wouldn't do it before 9. I think that before 9, there's just so many other things that are going on, and they're just not ready yet. But 9, 10, I would definitely tape them. I definitely would, and let them see what's going on. And if you don't have the opportunity to see it in somebody else, because they do, they do feel very much. You know, I think Harry's probably a very good phlegmatic melancholy blend, but he doesn't. The melancholy is rarely out, except for when he is struggling, and then you see that a little bit more. But you know, I think that those were things that we did that really were very helpful to him. He really needed to see how bad that, not just how bad it looks, but how out of control it looks. And then from there, we really were able to start naming feelings. He would say, "I feel wiggly," and he'd say that probably from the time he was 4 or 5 years old. And when we finally like figured out, all right, what does that means he's being triggered. Once we could really work with that, that was his key word for many, gosh, all of those years. He doesn't still use that word now, but he used it a lot. Sorry, I'm still looking. Mine is super sensitive. Yep. I think they all are really sensitive. I think just in different ways. I think that what I found really with Harry was that, and still, he has this amazing heart. Like, so he said to me, so he got a tax return last year from working at Legoland, deposited in his bank account that he has access to on his mission.
And he sent me a message last week. He's like, Mom, could you send me $30 so I could go to the museum? I said, Harry, where's the $400 I put in your bank account like last month? He goes, well, I just feel really bad when I'm out here and there's some guys that are having really bad days. I like to take them out to lunch. I'm like, stop it. Stop it. Um, but because he has this like major heart of gold and he would do anything for just about anybody. And so, you have to sort of work with them and help them to see when they're being suckers and when they're not being suckers. And that can be a hard boundary for them. But I wanted to talk too about, the other side. So Harry's got ASD. Soraya's got some special stuff going on. Special stuff that I knew. She was a preemie. And in this where I remember standing, because she was a preemie and she wasn't born at home. I remember wrapping her up in clothes to take her home from the hospital, and she was teeny. She was less than 5 pounds. I knew I had to have the special car seat. She was really small, and I remember this shrieking that she did, and it was, she had this like rage monster inside her, and she was such a small body. And I remember it was the same look on her face that Harry would have when he would tantrum. And I remember thinking, crap, here we go. And there's so much, that goes on with sensory stuff. So in her case, I think her sensory stuff comes from her jog down the birth canal being so fast and her being so small. So she actually was born vaginally, but she was one push. I remember the doctor, I had 4 other kids, and the doctor said, okay, it's time to push. And I thought, well, I'm going to be at this a while. I get myself ready. I get in the good headspace. I'm like, all right, I'm ready. One push. It took longer, and it was harder to push out the placenta than it was to push her out. So, I knew then that we were in for something. And so now she's 5. And the first 2 years were incredibly hard. And I've talked in other places sort of about some of the things that she had going on. She had some spiritual stuff going on that I know some people raise their eyebrows at me and go, are you kidding me? But we did some energy work on her from between the time she was about, I think it seems like she was about 18 months or so. The kid never slept, like never. And we were both exhausted. Eric and I, we worked tandem, and we both worked at home. And so that was a huge blessing. But she was always moving. And when she did sleep, it was like I had to pin her down in order to get her down, in order to get her still, in order to get her to sleep. And I nursed her. And so that was super helpful because she could relax a ton. And so, we would work with oils and the Badger Balm. I remember we used the Badger Balm so much. Oh my gosh. We used the Badger Balm so much that by the time she was 18 months old, she was clamoring for it because she knew she needed to rub herself down because it would make her feel better. So those were our first real indications that she would do really well with things that aromatherapy kind of things. So she does now. Even we use doTERRA Serenity and Balance in a roller ball together, and the two work beautifully for most things. And we also use the doTERRA Console for tantrums because kids on the spectrum, all kids have big feelings, but man, kids on the spectrum, they have really big feelings. Like really big feelings. So the console really helps her a lot, and it's helped her a lot. We just moved, and so this has been sort of a rough month for her, just between the two houses, and that's been super helpful. I'm looking at comments here. So anyway, I would say that her temperament's most definitely choleric. I think a lot of kids with sensory probably are presenting that way. Choleric, sometimes melancholy, I think. She's extremely analytical at 5. Could probably rule the world right now if I tried. If she tried, if I let her. But I think that, again, I'm looking at disciplining a little bit different, and that we're definitely watching for triggers. watching for triggers with kids with special needs, I think, is the biggest thing that you can do, is figuring out what their triggers are and then really, really trying to work with them. So I knew this last month with us moving was going to be one huge trigger for her, one after another. And so my challenge was really for me to get enough rest. And sometimes I did, most of the time I did really good, but there were a couple of times that I snapped and I was like, do you need a spanking on your bottom? And I'm not a spanking mom. I'm just not. But those things come out when you're exhausted, and it never actually happened. But the fact that I would even threaten it was something that is not the kind of mom that I am. at least not at least not now. I mean, there were times in my earlier parenting that the life like that got the better of me. But when you can realize that it's about you and your exhaustion and your lack of patience with this child, then it changes sort of how you're looking at things. It's all about me, and it's all about where I'm at. And I'm not condemning anybody. That I'm just saying it's not a great disciplinary tool, because it doesn't really work. It does tend to work with kids on the spectrum more,
because they're so black and white. But I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't use it. No. I am, like I said, a no spanking mom. But definitely over the last month, when you're exhausted and you're at your wit's end and so I found myself threatening. I was like, wait a minute, back up. Back up, back up. Okay. Triggers, triggers, triggers. What are her triggers? What's going on right now? What can I use? Where am I so that I can get in a better place? And so it really does. It comes down to me and how much sleep I'm getting, how much rest I'm getting. And so, Eric and I really worked with that. And it was hard because Eric hurt his back. He hurt his back he hurt his back last month, but it really got aggravated about 2 weeks into our move. And so I was doing a lot of it on my own. And he was helping where he could, but he couldn't do any of the lifting. And especially in the last week when we were trying to finish things up, that was really hard. And it was hard on Soraya because we could have been done a week ago, but because we had so much that he couldn't do, it took us longer. And so we used, again, a lot of Console, a lot of it. I would diffuse it at night for everybody in the house. I had this one big diffuser that goes for like 8 hours. And so I would diffuse it at night. Our space is pretty small. We have about 800 square feet now of major living space. And so it pretty much covered the whole house. That was super helpful. I would rub her down with it on a regular basis. That was really helpful. It also is really helpful for her. And I think all kids on the spectrum, all of them, they really just need you to stop and hold them for a minute and take a deep breath with them. And that was sort of, when we're nursing moms, we have to do that. We have to stop and slow down and nurse this child. And so, when they're out of that space, we have to figure out those ways to connect. So I'm going to look at some comments here. Do either of your kids have dietary issues? Yep. For sure. My oldest has wheat. He can't do. He's pretty much gluten free. Not gluten totally, but like he has to be wheat free, especially refined stuff. He can do sourdough. In fact, we still do sourdough here at home. But I found that he has those sensitivities. My younger one, not as much. I just have to watch what she eats because she'll get in a food rut. She can do some wheat. She just can't do too much of it. And I think that's everybody. If you just lived on bread, then everybody would be a little crazy. We'd all have sugar high all the time. But as far as my older son, he has wheat, dairy, and food dye sensitivities. And if he can go without those, life is wunderbar. If he can't, then it's definitely a struggle. And so, that was when that first year of his mission, the first 9 months, I finally was able to talk to him on the phone once because it was really bad. And he had lost like 20 pounds and he was already really thin. And so I talked to him on the phone after talking to his doctor, his mission doctor. And I said, all right, tell me what you ate today. He's like, Mom, I'm not eating that much wheat. I just had it in my cereal for breakfast, and then I'm eating it at lunch. And I'm like, son, that's too much wheat. So, really helping them as they're growing to see, like,
incidental is one thing, but when you're actually inviting it into your meals, you really need to think about things. So we just helped adjust things for him. Soraya can do, like I said, she can do some incidental stuff. She just can't live on wheat unless it's balanced. If she can have, so her food right now is cheese and tortilla. And we have really good organic tortillas that the ones that you can get them at Costco here, that you actually cook yourself. And she loves those, but she's got to balance it out with some cheese. So generally, like her favorite meal right now is cheese, tortilla, and applesauce because I'm really wanting the applesauce in her. So it's good organic stuff, but she can get into a rut, and I have to be really careful. And it's sensory kids can get into a rut really easily, and some of them are sensory and they don't want things like applesauce or things that are super smooth or pudding like. But she like loves it, and I mean this is a child that like licked sand, so um, I think I've talked about this in the past too, with regards to sensory stuff. I use the On Guard beadlets a lot because kids with sensory stuff like to lick things. And so I will have this conversation with her because I'm aware when we're out, and I know there are things that I'm trying to always be aware of our surroundings, and I'm watching because she loves like hand railings, the ropes that separate lines, sand, anything that in her mind she's thinking, I gotta lick it, I gotta lick it, I gotta lick it. She's way better than she was 6 months ago. But so I carry the On Guard beadlets in my purse all the time. And I'll say, if you lick that, you're going to take On Guard. So think about it. And she'll think about it. And sometimes she does it anyway. And then she holds her hand out because she knows she's taking the On Guard. So she holds the hand out for me to put the beadlets in her hand. And I'm a pretty big stickler on that one. Because germs, I'm not an antibacterial mom, but man, some of the things she licks, I go, what were you thinking? Sand? Really? So that's, I wanted to talk, sort of candidly about some special needs stuff. And I wanted to remind you that it's okay if you sort of like, I'm going to use my favorite new Australian saying here, lose the plot. Thanks, Dina. I've been using that one a lot. It's okay if you kind of freak out a little bit and lose it. Come back to center, apologize to your kids, and go, man, I screwed up. I am so sorry. And that goes for anything. That goes for any kids, not just on the special needs situation. But give yourself a pat on the back, because if you've been a mom of special needs kids for any length of time, like 5 minutes, you are in like this major category of being my hero, because it is not an easy task. And so I think that if you can just work on getting the rest that you need, if you've got respite care available to you, whether it be through an agency or through, your partners helping you, or you've got people at home that can help you, use it, take it. There's a lot of government agencies that provide respite care for families that have special needs kids. Use it. Get the time that you need. So, anyway, I know it's cutting out here now. I'm going to finish up, and if you have any questions, just shout at me. I'm happy to answer questions. Being a special needs mom is sort of, sort of a weird badge that we carry, but we can do it. And I know that these kids came to me for a reason. I know that your kids came to you for a reason. God sort of entrusted us with these things. And I remember when I was wrapping her up to put her in that car seat that very first time when we left the hospital. I remember thinking, why at the end? Why? I'm so tired. Why at the end? And I had this like, it was like the Holy Ghost was standing right next to me. The Holy Ghost was like, because you did such a good job the first time, we're just gonna give you another one. Thank you. So I really want to encourage you to pray and meditate about these children. Keep yourself in a good place, and just remember, you're a good mom. So that's all for now. I hope you all have a great day. Bye now.